Okay, so you remember that the deceased lady that Gabrielle found in the Venetian lagoon, she'd been at Cambridge. Well, I just want to say that if I had applied to Cambridge to study English literature based on based on questions, and they gave me interview questions on this book, I would have failed. I wouldn't have got in because the last video I got something wrong. So what was it that I got wrong? Okay, so remember that key point in the story where Gabrielle realized there's this Leonardo da Vinci covered up that had been stolen by the Camorra, but nobody knew where it was. And then Gabrielle finished off completing the work for the Vatican on the Titian. When that was complete, they invited some experts to look at the Titian and approve and give an opinion on that. And that's when Julian Isherwood met Gabrielle and told Gabrielle about his company had been notified by Peter van der Voelde that Peter van der Voelde had allegedly purchased a painting for €5,000. He thought Julian should come out, have a look at it, and it was a painting of a woman. And Gabrielle realized that it was probably this Leonardo. Okay, but what happened then? So Gabrielle and a partner of his went with Julian to Amsterdam. And when Julian went to see Van der Velde's gallery, see Van der Velde and see the painting, Gabrielle and his friend, another agent, were waiting to see what happened. And they took Julian and Peter van der Velde went, as I said before, to Schiphol Airport. And all the time, Gabrielle was listening to Peter van der Velde's phone. He'd used the Israeli intelligence software called Proteus to hack Peter van der Velde's phone, so he knew all the emails and everything like that. And so this is another point I never thought of, right? No, you probably haven't thought of. How did Gabrielle know Peter van der Velde's mobile number, right? So that he could use the Proteus to hack it, right? How did he know that? And the answer is that Peter van der Velde had phoned Julian's company. So Julian's company had a record of the number, could give it to Gabrielle, and Gabrielle could then hack and listen to Peter van der Velde. Anyway, they went to the plane, and that's, as I explained before, they made Julian look at this painting whilst on the plane. Okay. And then the question was, how did they find out that this painting had gone to Lugano in Switzerland? And the story I gave before was incorrect. The correct version is that Julian's partner, a very clever lady named Sarah, observed the registration number of the aircraft that had been used to fly Julian and Peter and one other unknown, rather fancy character around while he was looking at the painting. And then Sarah was able to access public records that showed the flights, all the flights logged by this plane. And the next flight logged by this plane was to Lugano in Switzerland. And then the mistake that the Camorra made, and the Camorra was working with Peter van der Velde, was that Peter van der Velde went with to Lugano. And that meant as soon as they got out of the plane, Gabrielle was able to access his phone and find out where he was, find the location of the phone, and found that Peter van der World had gone with the others and presumably the painting to SBL Bank in Lugano. Okay, and now I mentioned the Danish lady. She came in later. That was a mistake. Okay, so what happened then was now Gabriel was pretty certain that the painting was in the bank in Lugano, SBL Bank. So what does he have to do? He has to find out more about that bank. And you can find out a certain amount online, but he has I told you he had many contacts. He has this brilliant banking executive in Geneva by the name of Martin Landman, and Gabriel goes and pays him a visit and asks him about SBL Bank. And the first thing Martin says is that the SBL Bank is dodgy. It's linked or run by the Camorra. Okay, so that was the first meeting with Martin Landman. Then Gabriel thinks, okay, I got to find out much more about SBL Bank and what they're and see if they're holding this painting. How does he do that? He has another brilliant contact in Denmark, and that was the lady I mentioned. So he goes to see her. Cut a long story short, she hacks SBL Bank. She's a world-class hacker, finds all its financial records, downloads the whole lot, all the accounts, all the financial records, and photographic copies of the painting, front and back, an insurance policy that was issued to one of the big Zurich insurance company for $500 million, provided that and the $500 million would only be paid by the insurance company if the painting was stolen from the bank. They also found, and this was his friend Sarah found, who was tracing the plane. They also found that plane, which Julian had been on, and which had gone to Lugano, then later on went to all over the world, and Gabriel was able to figure out that this was for the purpose of showing the actual picture, as I understand it, or possibly the images of it, I think it was just the images, to buyers all over the world, super wealthy buyers all over the world. Okay, that's what happened. And then Gabriel went back to see Martin Landman, this time with all that information from the bank. And Martin went through it all very carefully and was able to see that there were some dodgy loans linked to a property in London, in Mayfair, that the Vatican had paid 400 million. I'm pretty sure it was one of the treasurers, at the Vatican, had paid 400 million, and that was overpaid. It was only worth 200 million. And so that's why there was someone in the Vatican who was behind this whole thing, because they thought that if they could sell the Leonardo for 200 or 300 million, that would cover that tremendous loss on the 400 million Mayfair place, which was only worth less than 200 million. Okay, so that's what's going on. And now the next step, which I'll talk about in the next video, is the efforts by Peter van der World and Frank Tedeschi, the executive at SBL, who was also on the plane with Julian, their efforts to market this painting and find they'd already tried to show it to some wealthy people, but the point was now Gabriel realized that he could get the art experts from London to notify a much wider range of people, wealthy people, who might be interested in making offers on this Leonardo, provided it could be authenticated as a Leonardo. Okay, so wait for the next video, see what happens.